Get off of him, motherfucker!
It's like my last Saturday night.
Hi, I'm Sammy.
Hello, I am Robert, and today we're reviewing Malignant, a film by James Wan from 2021.
Whoa, that means it came out recently.
Very recently. You know what else that means? It means that there's not a lot of notes for me to look at on the internet from my various sources to find out trivia and things like that about the movie. But that's okay. I watched it, so I feel confident in my ability to BS my way through it.
Oh, God.
Hey, tell everyone what it's about.
Well, it's about a woman named Madison who is paralyzed from these shocking visions of grisly murders, only to realize that these dreams are, in fact, real.
Mm-hmm. It's an old sort of movie trope, like, I can't remember. Maybe it's The Eyes of Laura Mars or something, where somebody gets, operation on their eyes, and then they see murders and stuff like that and visions, but they actually happen.
Right.
So that's what's happening to Madison. She doesn't know they actually happen until, she hooks up with the police, but it's very disturbing, and there's a lot of special effects in this film.
Yes.
Maybe a bit more than most of James Wan's films. And I don't mean like special effects like you get stabbed and blood shoots out. I mean, there's all scenery changes and stuff like that. When she gets her visions, sometimes the whole background that she's in, like she's in her kitchen, and all of a sudden it'll not all of a sudden, but gradually it'll morph into wherever the murder's taking place or whatever. And it's great stuff. I've watched a lot of James Wan films recently. Have you?
Maybe, but I don't know if don't know if they've been James.
He's been involved with Saw.
Yes,
Insidious.
Saw. Not Insidious.
And Conjuring, and there's multiple movies in those.
I sense a pattern with his movies.
So he's great. He's probably the greatest horror director that may be alive today. He's certainly very prolific, and his movies do very well, so people like him. But he's got a look, right? All his older movies are the camera is never still. It's never still. It's maybe a steady cam, but it's moving a little bit. Or if it is a stationary camera, it's zooming in and out. Not together, but like either in or out.
Vision.
The camera's dollying, it's panning, it's a little bit of handheld stuff. That creates a lot of tension, and that adds to the horror of his films. This movie, it does have that, but what I noticed was that this movie is more comic booky. Like I don't think for a minute you're supposed to think it's like a real. You're kind of separated from it because of the way he uses the camera and stuff. So like, at times there's campy. For instance, the opening sequence, it takes place in the 90s, right? And it provides a little bit of a backstory for you, but it doesn't really explain anything like they do later in the film. And somebody gets a gash on their arm, and they hold it up to the camera and go, "Ah!" That's what I call campiness, and it's like that doesn't really happen. When I get gashed on the arm, I go like this, and I curse like an MFer.
That is true. Good eye there.
And then when there's a surprise or somebody has like a startle reaction, like the cat jumps in there towards their face or something, his camera angle goes like 45 degrees like that, and it reminded me a little bit of the original or the Batman TV series with Adam West, like where you go into the villain's lair and the camera's always turned sideways, so you know something's wrong. Well, I mean, really, no shit, James Wan. I know something's wrong, right? Somebody's getting hurt or killed. But it reminded me of some movies. Creepshow. I don't know if you ever saw Creepshow, which is it's really got a comic book framework, so it's very comic booky in that way. And Sin City, which had Bruce Willis and a bunch of other people in it, that they colorized it so that they used primarily black and whites, but they also used primary colors, and it looks like a comic book. I get that feeling from this movie.
Well, you do have a point there, Robert.
I'm a student of film, so, you know.
That does make sense.
Did you find this plot obvious and straightforward, or was it tricky?
Well, in the beginning, I thought, okay, heard this story before. But then then once we saw what happened. And
I agree completely.
And then once we got into more detail throughout the film, the plot for me kept seeming like it kept changing.
I have watched a lot of James Wan films this year in particular for October Moviefest Countdown 2021. And I'm telling you, he loves a tricky, convoluted plot that that just twists and turns at almost every scene. Certainly in the last half of the film, things get complicated, but you can follow it. You can at least follow it while you're watching the movie.
I might need to watch it again.
You don't get, this is an hour and 50-minute movie. You don't get Gabriel's backstory for an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And I was worried that there would be a cop out plot, like oh, it's an alien or whatever. But it's not. It's a really well thought out connection, and while it's tricky as hell, it's really good. There was almost 750,000 people streamed this. Came out on HBO Max very recently. 750,000 people streamed it the first weekend. It's a hugely popular, successful thing. It's tough to rate. I normally give Rotten Tomatoes a look or the IMDb rating, but when a movie is this new, there's not many reviewers yet, so that'll change. A movie like this, it's gonna do well. James Wan has a lot of fans, even though there's a slightly different style. I think people are gonna like it. What'd you think of, without spoiling it, what'd you think of the whole look of Gabriel's makeup and stuff?
Well, Gabriel reminded me of Samara from The Ring.
Yeah, I get that. I think he was scarier than her, but yeah, I get the resemblance. Yeah. Lines from the movie.
Who are you, Gabriel?
The only Gabriel I know is an angel, and this guy is no angel.
Mm-mm.
I'm having visions.
Of sugar plums dancing in your head?
Hardly. So, it's pumpkin rating time for Malignant. Here, you hold 2 pumpkins.
Okay.
I just watched it today, so I'm not fully digested. But I think it's going to be a 3.5.
I like that compromise.
3.5 pumpkins. It's, especially if you like James Wan, it's really strong film, and it's scary.
Yeah, it's good special effects.